Hello and welcome to another edition of Midnight Mania Sports. Once again, I'm your host, DeCouta. Today we're going to be discussing MLB free agency, MLB offseason, and trade rumors. So let's start things off with the biggest news of the 2019-2020 offseason, where free agent starting pitcher Gerrit Cole has agreed to a 9-year, $324 million contract with the New York Yankees. Cole is a guy who had a phenomenal season last year, coming off of a great year with the Houston Astros, in which he finished second in Cy Young voting for the American League. A guy who started off his career in Pittsburgh, a little bit up and down there, but really has hit his prime in Houston the last two seasons. The Yankees are paying Cole an average annual salary of $36 million. It's going to be interesting to see if the Yankees end up front-loading that deal, what they do exactly to move the numbers around a little bit, with heavy contracts from Giancarlo Stanton, James Paxton on the books already. But they're going to take a look at how they can best financially fit Gerrit Cole into their payroll and their budget. They could do something similar like the Philadelphia Phillies did with Bryce Harper last offseason, signing him to a 13-year deal for $330 million, and they spread out that money across those 13 years. That way his average annual salary is only about $22 million. In other free agent news, we have free agent starting pitcher Zack Wheeler agreeing to a 5-year, $125 million contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, Wheeler's coming over from NL East division rival, the New York Mets, and Zack Wheeler's a guy who was a top prospect, had a lot of potential. A couple injuries to his arm set him back a couple years, but the last two seasons have been very good ones for Zack Wheeler, a guy who was a trade candidate at the deadline last year but didn't get moved. Now gets a nice payday in free agency, coming off of two decent seasons. The Phillies get themselves a nice number 2 behind Aaron Nola. We'll see if they decide to add another pitcher or bat during this offseason. They did sign Didi Gregorius as well, former New York Yankees shortstop, to a 1-year, $14 million contract, and Gregorius said one of the reasons he chose to come to Philly was to be reunited with Joe Girardi, his former manager from New York. So new manager Joe Girardi already paying dividends for the Philadelphia Phillies, helping them lure in Didi Gregorius, as well as being part of the reason Zack Wheeler wanted to stay local, as the Phillies have had Bryce Harper come in recent years. Now Gregorius, Zack Wheeler, JT Realmuto traded, and he wants to re-sign as well. So Phillies looking to be building something special there with a lot of talent and big names on that roster. In other free agent news, this comes from last week, where Mike Moustakas signed a 4-year, $64 million contract with the Cincinnati Reds. He'll likely be playing second base there, as they already have star third baseman Eugenio Suarez on the hot corner for the Cincinnati Reds ball club in the next 4 seasons. The San Francisco Giants have signed starting pitcher Kevin Gausman to a 1-year, $9 million contract. Gausman had higher expectations coming into this season, once a prized prospect with the Orioles, headed over to the Braves in a trade, and people were expecting him to try to turn things around and make the jump, but he didn't really do so this year, having a tough season, landing on the IL a couple times and not really putting it together. The Giants, a team who are in between a rebuild, are going to take a chance on Gausman on a 1-year deal, potentially with the hope of moving him at the trade deadline if he can rebuild his value. Former Baltimore Orioles center fielder Adam Jones has signed a deal to head to Japan, a 2-year, $8 million contract for the Nippon Professional Baseball League. Jones was with the Diamondbacks last season, batted .260 with 16 homers, 67 RBI. He struggled defensively, which caused him to post a negative .4 WAR. And a guy who was a 5-time All-Star with the Orioles, having 25 home runs in 7 consecutive seasons, is going to head to Japan, collect a nice little payday there, and look to maybe rebuild his value, and he could potentially get back in the MLB in a year or two. The San Francisco Giants have acquired shortstop Zach Cozart and prospect Will Wilson from the Los Angeles Angels in exchange for a player to be named later in cash. And what this move really was for the Angels was a salary dump, as Cozart was due $12.6 million next season, but the Angels, in order to dump that salary, had to send along 2019 first-round pick Wilson, a guy who was a top prospect in that Angels organization. In order to move the $12 million for Cozart, they had to attach Will Wilson to the San Francisco Giants in order for them to pay the money. This frees up some room from the Angels, which is interesting. Maybe could lead to them landing Anthony Rendon or Josh Donaldson, trying to get Mike Trout some help in that lineup, because really it's just Mike Trout at this point. Starting pitcher Steven Strasburg has re-signed with the Washington Nationals to a 7-year, $245 million contract. The 31-year-old opted out of his $25 million a year contract after being named the World Series MVP And the former number 1 overall pick had a great season, going 18-6 with a 3.32 ERA in 2019, which was his first healthy season since 2014. Strasburg getting a nice payday to take him to the end of his career for the next 7 seasons, and that really moved the ball on the Garrett Cole signing, with Strasburg getting $245 million, set the benchmark for what Garrett Cole had to be awarded at the minimum. And late last night, the Chicago White Sox acquired outfielder Nomar Mazara from the Texas Rangers in exchange for outfield prospect Steele Walker. Mazara is just 24 years old, slashed .268 last year with 19 homers across 116 games. He had poor defense in right field, so the White Sox are going to look to rebuild this guy's value, a younger talent and a guy who has potential still and some power, as the White Sox take a chance by trading a prospect in order to get a right fielder with some potential. White Sox have missed out on Zach Wheeler this offseason. They missed out on Machado and Harper last offseason, so the White Sox not able to draw free agents, trying to build some younger stars by acquiring guys who didn't reach their potential other places. We'll see how Nomar Mazara fares in his first season in Chicago. I'm Austin DeCouta. That's all for today's MLB update here on Midnight Mania Sports. Check out our YouTube at MidMania Sports, as well as our Instagram and Twitter to catch the latest news and updates as we post our videos and our Apple podcast. Thank you for listening.